We are now live. Welcome to the meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Committee. The agenda papers and other relevant information for the meeting are available for the public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. Please remember your words and actions should be chosen carefully, and members are reminded that speeches are limited to 3 minutes, not as last night to 45 seconds. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and also making a recording. The recording will be available via the Council's website shortly after the meeting has concluded. Other attendees are permitted to film, photograph and record the meeting, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If you do not wish to be filmed or photographed, please identify yourself so that anyone who intends to record the meeting can be made aware. There is no one. To ensure that the recording quality is maintained, could members speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum to ensure that the mobile phones and other devices are turned to silent. Welcome to those in attendance. I now ask Mr. Withers to introduce the officers.
Thank you, Councillor James. My name is Simon Withers. I'm one of the development managers in the planning team, and I'm here today to support the committee with planning advice and guidance. Can I also introduce to you virtually Mark Sorrentino, the councillor's senior lawyer, who's here in the event that any legal advice is required. On my immediate right is Josh Evans. He's one of the senior planning officers, and he'll be presenting the first item on the agenda. We'll be joined later by Laura Smith and Amber Morris, who will be presenting the other 2 items. And then further to my right, we have Katie Jones, who is the area engineer team leader and is here specifically to offer any advice and guidance on highway-related matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll move on to item 1 of the agenda, which is apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Councillor Baker and Stone and Councillor Carwadine as well. And Councillor Toynbee, local member to the Wyeside playing fields application, has provided apologies. Name substitute. Councillor Highfield is acting as substitute for Councillor Baker, and Councillor Alan Williams is acting as substitute for Councillor Stone. Declarations of interest. Please can you indicate if you wish to declare an interest, and I will then call each councillor in turn. Thank you. There are none. Gone are the days when we used to have declarations coming left, right and centre for these meetings, but there we are. The minutes of the meeting now, item 4, to confirm the meetings to be held on, which were held on May the 1st, 2024. Are the minutes of the meeting on the 1st of May 24 approved? Please can members indicate with their hands. For those for. Those against? Abstentions? For those not present? That's carried. Right. Can I just say, the only item I'll mention under Chairman's announcement, members are requested to remain at the after the meeting for an update on appeals. Can I now request that the public speaker present for the agenda item 6 of the meeting, Mr. Botfield and Ms. Dray, please take their seats in the public participation tables in the front. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for coming. And can I say I'll ask you to make your presentation after the presentation from the case officer. So I'll now move over to our case officer, who will give the introduction on the first application, which is land at Upper House, Lyne Down, Herefordshire. Change of use from agricultural land to use for holiday huts, 2 shepherd huts and a creation of car parking area.
Thank you, Chair. Hello and good morning. I wish to thank those councillors who attended the site visit yesterday and would draw members' attention to the update sheet within the document. The application was redirected to Planning Committee given significant public interest by Councillor Durkin. The application is demarcated as shown on the screen by the red star. The application is for 2 Halder units to the north of Lyne down. The application has been revised during the application process and went from 4 Halderlets down to 2. There is also an amended site plan and a plan for the system of foul water proposed for the site. The site also includes the creation of a car parking facility to the west of the host dwelling to serve the Halderlets. The slide shows an aerial photograph of Lyne Down. As noted, it is a fairly small settlement to the southwest of Muchmarkle. The property itself is accessed via a private network road connecting to Welsh Court Road. 110 metres to the southwest sits the Grade 2 listed heritage asset, the Kittles. It is noted that the host building sits in front of the proposed holiday lodges. As such, a large screening of the asset is provided. In addition, there is proposed planting to the south of providing further screening for the holiday lodges. As noted in the update sheet, the application wishes to connect to a new private treatment plant. It is acknowledged that the site falls within the River Severn catchment and does not require an appropriate assessment. The issue of discharge to the drainage field is not a material planning consideration but falls within the scope of building regulations. The proposal would not result in additional hard standing, with porous gravel tracks and grass core proposed, allowing for infiltration to the ground. As such, there is no concern with regard to flooding. The proposal would allow for the creation of additional parking provision on site and better turning facilities and would be screened by planting. The proposed parking area is not constructed of hard standing, as mentioned. The images on the screen show the proposed holiday lodge, which offers a limited provision in terms of space. The proposal offers a private bathroom, limited preparation space and a double bed. The maximum occupancy given the scale of proposed units is for 2 persons, resulting in a maximum of 4 people visiting the site at any one time. Some concerns have been raised regarding the potential for further use to be added. However, this would require a planning consent and ultimately would be reassessed. Some concerns have been raised regarding the access track, which measures 4.2 metres at its widest and 2.8 at its narrowest. On the screen shows the access road proposed. In line with policy E4, the Herefordshire local plan, there is in principle the support for tourism facilities within Hereford and supporting the local economy. The highways access has been concluded by the local highways authority to be acceptable and will not result in an adverse intensification of the highway network. In addition to this, given significant distance between the units and the neighbouring properties, there are no concerns with regard to amenity, with regard to overlooking, overshadowing or overbearing impacts. As such, my recommendation is for the application to be approved subject to condition as outlined from the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And now I'll move to the speakers. Can I invite Mr. Botfield, a local resident, to speak in objection to the application? You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Martin Botfield. I'm the owner-occupier of Kittles Cottage, the Grade 2 listed property listed in the application. The access is a private driveway which is gated. The definitive map clearly shows that the driveway is not a public road and has no public right-of-way. The driveway has not been considered as it was removed from the original outline plan when it became clear there was no support for the application. The application site is an island surrounded by privately owned property which has no public rights-of-way, and consent for this use has not been given. The access is described as 4 metres wide when it is 2.4 to 1.8 metres wide. The site is isolated and not readily accessible to emergency vehicles. Application 121503 appears to have been refused for this reason. The site is estimated to be more than 120 metres uphill from the nearest fire hydrant. Fire risk has not been properly considered. The junction where the driveway meets the public road is blind to oncoming traffic to the right and blind to oncoming traffic on Gwyn's Hill opposite. The combination of these two blind junctions has not been considered. The decision on Visibilities Place is not consistent with the application 082790 Lyne down Cider, that is about 300 metres along the same lane, where visibility is better, the lane quieter, it is not opposite a junction, and vehicle use far lower than for this application. The Parish Council has expressed concern over the access, and its proper consideration is conditioned on their support. The planning officer has stated occupant would be reliant on private transport. Application 193469 appears to have been refused for this reason. The driveway is communal space where we often meet and chat with our neighbours and where our children play. We have no gates or fences where our parking areas and gateways meet the driveway, as this has never been necessary. This application would dramatically change the character of this communal space and inevitably lead to the need for fencing and gates. This would not only separate us from unwelcome prying eyes, it would also separate us from our neighbours and represent an unacceptable loss of character and amenity. We are Shire horse breeders, and private use of our driveway is an essential part of our work to help maintain this at-risk breed. The hut would overlook Lyne Down Farm, and from the parking area you can see into two of our bedrooms. Screening with vegetation will take years, if not decades, to establish and will not adequately address the loss of privacy. Service and groundwater from the application area is already a problem and will be made worse by this application. The surrounding residents all have young children. The 10:30 music curfew is far too late. There is no restriction on noise and intrusive outdoor activities. There is no restriction on smoke from wood burners, barbecues and cooking smells. Benefits for the rural economy do not outweigh the impact of amenity on nearby residents. It is not consistent with other planning decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. And now can I invite Ms. Dray to speak in support of the application?
Good morning, committee. My name is Carol Dray and I live at Upper House. We've applied for 2 shepherd huts to encourage like-minded people to come and enjoy the land and local facilities. The type of people we are looking to attract are people like artists, writers, bird watchers, walkers, and people who want a quiet escape from general day-to-day living. These groups of people will use and support local amenities like Western Cider, Helen Manor, and pubs like the Warwin Arms, the Royal Oak, and the new Muchmarcle community shop once it's up and running. In addition, the huts will provide new accommodation for visitors wishing to support local events such as Muchmarcle Steam Rally, Model Aircraft Show, Helen's Garden Festival, Big Apple Harvest, as well as local shoots and other countryside pursuits. The huts used will be repurposed traditional style shepherd huts, offering modest accommodation to discerning visitors. Their position within the field to the northeast of the main house has been carefully considered to impact minimally on the surrounding countryside. The site is screened from view by hedgerows and trees, making them all but invisible to neighbouring properties. The huts will be positioned on a porous loose gravel base, ensuring that rainwater runoff will not add to existing systems and that can readily be returned back to grassland. Facilities will be inside the huts, which will be serviced by a new independent treatment plant, offering a sustainable solution to foul waste. The land currently offers a very modest grazing field, which is of little value either agriculturally or ecologically. We intend to attract the wildlife to the land with a small natural pond, sympathetic planting, sowing of wildflowers and installation of bird and back boxes as a longer-term project. We believe that the use of the land for modest-scale tourism offers a sustainable option for the use of the field, which is otherwise of limited value agriculturally. It is expected that their use will be limited and will be mainly used at weekends around the warmer months. However, we do not expect interest to be limited to any particular season. The existing drive serving Upper House is modest and is difficult to navigate, requiring an additional car parking area, which is to include a home electrical charging station and which will offer visitors a turning area to ensure that the site can be accessed and exited in forward gears. The public, albeit unadopted lane, will have minimal increased traffic, as the expected additional vehicles would only be of a maximum of 2, as the huts are for couples or single adults only. We assume no more than 6 to 8 additional vehicle movements a day whilst the huts are occupied. Overall, we believe that this modest scale facility will benefit the local community and businesses by bringing visitors to this exceptional corner of Herefordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. If the speakers could kindly take their seats back in the public gallery, please. Councillor Durkin is the local member for this item. He speaks first and has the right to speak at the end of the debate. He does not have a vote. There is a 10-minute time limit on his presentation. Councillor Durkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you all that attended the site meeting yesterday. I think it was invaluable to see actually the environment that we're talking about. I'm going to repeat some of the things that have already been said, unfortunately, but they are salient. Although the access is from a classified road and has been removed from the application and is considered by the applicant as an unadopted lane, therefore now considered as part of the application, not now considered part of the application, and the planning committee is not to consider it as part of the application. However, I do need to address this driveway as it is germane for access to the site being the only available access. You will have seen the gates across the driveway yesterday when you turned up just by the White House. It is recognised by other resident and locals that it's the private driveway which is gated, and it is closed off at certain times of the year to prevent the access by people from public rights of way. It is not a public rights of way. The access to the three houses on the driveway is included in each respective house title deeds as use and ownership by the properties on the driveway for social and domestic, not business. The access at the site is not 4.2, it is at the maximum 2.2 widest, as you saw yesterday, and 1.1 at its narrowest. So it's quite small. However, it is considered for the use of the purposes will have a negative impact on the houses on the driveway due to the vehicle movements in addition to noise, pollution, disturbance and inconvenience, to name but a few. Therefore, as the access driveway is no longer part of the application, I shall make comments on MT1, traffic management and safety. From the highway's perspective, the impact of vehicle movements will be, in my opinion, not considered acceptable. At 6.10 in the officer's report, it states there will be a modest intensification of vehicles, and you heard the same from the applicant just now. Let's consider modest. Currently, there are no times and no extent on operations, let us start by assuming that 50 weeks operational per annum. With a normal coming and going and leaving the sites by the holiday makers or like-minded persons, Saturday to Friday, one vehicle movement per accommodation unit. On an annual basis, that will involve 200 vehicle movements. This is without the usual holiday vehicle movements going to explore Herefordshire. So say 4 days a week for going out and leaving the site, not saying in the units, which will involve the car out and car back. These will be movements of 800 vehicles, and that's 1,000 minimum, approximately, vehicle movements per annum. Obviously, if it was 4 units, it would be then double that. So this excludes vehicles out to pubs for meals during evenings, etc. All these movements along a private drive and close to homes. This would provide far more journeys to and from the site than modest. It is at the end of the primarily residential location and accessed over a very narrow and private driveway and close to established homes. Please remember that the private drive is the only way in and out where access is not permitted for business use, and it is in a landlocked position. The journey not directly accessed by an adopted road, as believed by the applicant. I refer to the officer's report and Much Markle's NDP at SD1, Sustainable Development and the Operation of Development. I cannot see any restriction relating to the permitted business use, therefore I am concerned relating to the over-intensification of vehicle movements in a landlocked site which would be appropriate with its use. Therefore, the operation of this application is the concern. Although there are no provisions for cycles on site, I would consider it appropriate within our core strategy. I am an advocate of tourism, but this application seems to be an over-intensification and inappropriate use in a residential enclave with a narrow private driveway as the only access. The huts, this is about landscape, LD1 now. The huts are not as indicated at 1.2 in the officer's report, which you saw on the screen just now as saying for the site. However, They are not seen as typical huts, as on the site yesterday there was a shepherd's hut which seemed to give for us to be seen as an idea of what it is. It's not the same as what's being proposed in the planning application. The unit on site yesterday did not and was made to what appeared to be corrugated iron walls and was explained to be a hut that is to be provided. It was not illustrated as the plan, the application, and without the design, form or construction as proposed in 1.2, the current accommodation unit is, in my opinion, detrimental to the landscape. We have got the very attractive looking shepherd's hut there. Now, at core strategy 5.37, landscape is important. It matters to people. This unit on site is out of character with the aims of SD1, in my opinion. The hut situated on site does not provide an enhancement of the proposal and does not conserve scenic beauty. Under 6.13 of the officer's report, I do not believe that the proposal, I do believe that the proposal would have an adverse impact upon the wider landscape, with an inappropriate willow installed for hedging, and this takes years, or as you've heard, decades, for any indigenous plant species hedging to provide adequate cover, and this would not provide any cover for a wider landscape for many years. It is not, as I understand it, a hedging plant. The idea is to grow high. So therefore there is no low-level hedge screening. Core strategy 5.38, added landscape screening. I do not see evidence of a proper species mix to enable a dense hedgerow. Our officer report on 6.13 says this may be secured by condition, but that's going to take years, as I've just said. Not known as a good plant in the location on a raised elevation. Is it appropriate? Will this prevent overlooking as mitigation during times when leaves are not on the tree and not as a hedge? As we saw yesterday, there are two places that are overlooked. One is Lyne Down Farm, which we saw from the actual site of the proposed units, and that could see straight over there, and also from the car park, Kittles, which is with the gentleman just speaking in objection, that's his house, and this looks into 2 bedrooms of his house. And as I understand it, by way of nothing in particular, that willow is loved by rabbits and deers, so how long will it last? It is disappointing that the hard standing for the car parking area is to be non-porous. Finally, it is recognised in Officer's Report 624 there is a large level of local concern. There have been 24 letters of objection and none in support. The summary of objections can be found at Officer's Report at 5.2 under third-party representations for local details of concern. So I do object to this application in Lyne Down. It's primarily residential location to provide a business that is going to involve more than modest access by vehicles of different types. And if you think about it, 2.2 metres at its widest, 1.8 metres at its narrowest, does preclude rather a lot of large SUV vehicles. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Now I open the debate. Are there any speakers? Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Josh, for taking us round site yesterday. There are a few clarifications I just want to get straight in my mind when we're discussing this. Would you be able to bring back the picture of the site plan that showed the drainage on, please? I've been looking at this online and within the public pack. There's some confusion, I think, over what's actually showing on the planning portal. This is the first time I've seen this actual plan with the drainage shown and the packaged treatment plant location. Now that is showing drainage uphill, which obviously can't happen. So I'd like some clarification as to the location of the packaged treatment plant and the drainage direction, given the land falls away in a different direction. Then moving on, I would also like to talk a bit about the plans that on planning portal show one plan, the red line boundary includes the lane and one doesn't. So I just want that clarified as well. And then I'll go on to talk about some of the other concerns I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So the the package treatment plant will be a pump system. So it will pump the foul water to the system and then discharge into the drainage field. So that system is controlled by building regs. It wouldn't be within the remit of planning. And then, sorry, what was the other question you asked?
Okay, just going back to that one. So when we were on site yesterday, that package treatment plant was a lot further away at the top of a field to then go down. That's showing something completely different. So is that the plan that we're approving? Because that's very close to the bottom of the field. And even if you pump it up, the drainage directions are showing a different direction.
It would be pumped up, is the answer to your question.
Okay, but not where we were shown in the field, in the other field where the yellow post was?
No.
Okay. The second one was with regard to the site plans, one showing the red line boundary with the lane and one without, within the amended plans on the planning portal.
Yes, so that was removed from the application itself and it has been amended within the conditions.
Okay, so yeah, so what we're seeing on there and here is what we're dealing with. Okay, right. First of all, I'm just concerned as to whether we're talking with regard to RA6 and sustainable tourism and talking about diversification of existing agricultural businesses. This is defined as an agricultural business here, is it, on this site?
So it does have the present use of agriculture on the land use. As the applicant has said, there is no existing agriculture on there. However, that's the use which it is at presently. And
so we're not diversifying an existing business?
No, we wouldn't be diversifying.
Right, thank you. With regards to noise, that's obviously been raised as a concern by nearby residents. We did notice a lot of paraphernalia in the gardens that showed there were children living there, and that's been confirmed by Mr. Botfield. I just want to understand what conditions can be placed on timing of noise. I'm concerned at any amplified music at all, at any point in the daytime. It's a very rural area. I don't think there should be any amplified music whatsoever in the vicinity, and therefore I'd like a condition that specified that to protect residential amenity. I think also with regard to some of the disturbance, bearing in mind proximity of that parking area to the neighbours, no late check-ins, whether we can specify that as a condition. And I guess that would come into a travel plan as well, whether that's a potential to add a condition on travel plans. I don't know if Simon can come in on that.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Yeah, I think it's clearly the relationship of the site to some very close neighbours is a key concern, and I appreciate and understand that. From a planning point of view, yes, we can attach conditions. I think we need to be proportionate in the way that we apply those from the point of view of planning legislation, and we do need to be aware of the fact that there are environmental health legislation requirements that might also govern unacceptable levels of noise. In my experience, one way that we might tackle quite flexibly a range of issues is to require a sort of a site management plan to be agreed, which could encompass a range of controls about when people would check in, the numbers of people, albeit it's quite self-limiting in terms of the accommodation that is proposed. It's something that we have used where environmental health have raised concerns about that relationship, and it enables a wider breadth of issues to be addressed, and it's something that you can incorporate a monitoring element to, so that over 6-month periods you'll get a chance to review how things have gone, maybe boost up certain aspects of it or leave certain things aside. So I think rather than try and the timing is one thing. I appreciate that. No amplified music. Again, we can be very specific about that. But in terms of the generality of how the site's managed, we could attach a condition on to require a site management plan. I think would be a better option than trying to predict a whole series of different possible issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Withers. I'd appreciate a site management plan as a condition if we were to approve this as a committee. Just moving on with noise, I think that is a particular issue. Hot tubs, there's no site plan here, but I do know with this type of development, there's often a pressure to have hot tubs with them. I think that would further degrade residential amenity in the proximity, and I'd like to preclude the positioning of hot tubs on that site as they're not part of the plan currently, particularly in terms of drainage, because of where it sits, they drain straight into the field, introducing additional chemicals into that field. So I would like to make sure that that doesn't happen. Screening, we all notice the willow screening there. That's obviously not species-rich hedgerow. It's not sufficient in my mind, and I would like that to be conditioned in a landscape plan. And potentially, if they're looking at starting this season to capture the summer season, I would like to see more substantial than whips going in. Whips, it's their bare root hedging, and it's the inappropriate time of year to plant that. So you've got the opportunity to plant something more substantial there with potted root ball plants. I think that covers most of my concerns. The only point was you mentioned in your report that it was a phosphate removal plant. Sorry. It's not, is it?
It's a package treatment plant.
It's a package treatment plant. Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to check because I think that would be a graph plus P, so that's fine. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. The only thing is I do recognise the residents' concerns about the private lane. However, that's not a material planning consideration as I understand it. You know, we can't factor in that, and that will have to be dealt with under civil issues. So I'm sorry that we can't factor that into our considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just clarify, Josh, I think you told us on site yesterday that the parking would not be hard standing, it would be grasscrete or something of a semi-permeable nature.
That's
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
It would be porous, and it would the water would infiltrate into the ground.
Yes. And I think the lane is a problem, because as my colleague has said, we can't really count it. Besides, the house owners could all acquire an extra car, which would just add to the normal domestic passage of cars. So, anyway, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. Other speakers? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so observed sort of three things I'd just like some information on, a bit more information on. Those willow saplings that were planted all the way along, they're very close proximity, planted obviously as some kind of fence more than an intention to grow them as to tree height, as it were. Is that right? Are they intended to be woven together to make a fence?
So that they were not part of the application. We do have a landscape scheme which is already on the conditions. That's condition 3 of the report, and that will be supplied to us. When we were on site, we obviously did notice those as well. So we'll have full details of the species mix and also the type of vegetation proposed.
I know that making a willow fence is a popular thing, and they can look very attractive, and they do, even without the leaves, they will obscure any visual line of sight. The other thing that was mentioned in one of the public speaking ones was about for kittles was the fact that people would be able to overlook or see into kittles. But that is, am I right? Is that just from the car park? That's what the concern was. It was a visual from the car park, not from the shepherd's hut.
That's correct. It would just be the car parking provision, which is adjacent to the kittles.
Because there's already a car park. We stood in it, didn't we? We stood in. There was a car park, and I think there were 4 or 5 vehicles already there in the current place. So those existing vehicles would also have the same potential line of sight into kittles and would be able to see the residents anyway. Is that right?
So there would be a slight extension of the car park. So we've assessed that when we were in the field.
Yes, there would be another one to the side.
There would be a slightly larger car park, yes.
Yeah. And then there was mentioned this rather emotive figure of 1,000 vehicle movements per annum. And as we noticed, there were many vehicles already there. How does that compare to the current number of vehicle accesses in and out? You know, there could be 10,000, and we're looking at potentially another 1,000 per annum. You know, so what is it as a proportional increase, rather than looking at the number just as exclusive, saying this is new arrivals, new traffic caused by the business. It doesn't really tell us anything other than being a bit of an emotive number. You know, 1,000 sounds impressive, but if we compare it to all the other comings and goings, there's nothing that we can do to. I don't think we can put anything in place to say you have to restrict the number of accesses up and down that road, because it is private, unadopted roads. Is that right? We can't say how many times people can go up and down that road.
We wouldn't be able to restrict that, no.
So we couldn't restrict that. Okay. And then finally, about the access, yes, we did go down it. We did see how narrow it was. But once again, I live in my house. I've got a joint owned access at the back, and there's nothing I can do to stop the builders' lorries coming up and down. It's a dead end, you know, as well. Nothing I can do to stop caravans coming up and down, builders' lorries, tree surgeons, visitors, guests of my neighbours coming up and down as many times as they like. So I don't think we can really rule on how that unadopted road is used, because any of the owners could decide themselves to have a party and have 100 cars go up there, and I don't think we've got any say on that. Is that correct?
Sorry, you'll have to.
Is it right that we don't have any say on not only the frequency of use, but what kinds of vehicles are allowed to be used to go up and down it, and by whom and how often?
No, we wouldn't have any restriction at present.
Okay, so we've got no say on that. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Can I just say that 1,000 movements a year would be less than 3 a day? Sorry, no. Councillor Highfield, was it?
Yes, I just wanted to add something that might help clarify things. I've just looked up the every single current model of Land Rover and Range Rover is over 1.9 metres wide. However, having said that, I'm quite sure I could get a Range Rover or a Land Rover up that lane. I'm not sure how the 1.8 narrowest point was measured. Was it overhanging vegetation or what? Because Councillor James drove an SUV up there yesterday.
Just.
Yeah, willow, a peculiar sort of plant to use there. Willow likes it a bit damper, and I don't think it's going to be particularly damp, but it is the fastest growing of all our native trees, if you could call it a tree, a shrub. So it will very quickly screen, and I think my colleague over there is right. If you want to lay it into a hedge, it will form a natural screen. The car park, when we sort of stood by the fence looking at the car park, you cannot see Kettle's house. There's quite a high hedge. And as an owner of Airbnb, not one of these shepherd's huts, by the way, but an Airbnb, there aren't that many movements a day. They tend to go out in the morning, come back in the evening. Some people cook themselves, some people go out to local pubs, so they do support local businesses. And as you said, the car park is going to be a permeable surface, so that's going to be no problem about that one. Saying that the road is only 1.8, well, we all walked up there yesterday, and my business is distance and length, and there was nowhere on that thing that had under 2 metres wide. Yes, there's overhanging hedges, but even then, I don't think they were that narrow. Finally, phosphate. Well, this type of thing, you're not going to wash machines, you're going to have no dishwashers. The amount of phosphate will be absolutely minimal. So, quite frankly, I can't see any reason not to support this, and Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that we support the officer in this one.
Other speakers? Any other speakers? There are none. Can I now go to the officers if you would? Sorry. Sorry.
Can I
Yes,
just
Councillor.
check that that is with the amendment of a condition for a site management plan that would include things like traffic, the hot tub condition, those sort of things added that I discussed? Or do you want me to go through them again?
So just to capture that point, yes, I've made a note of those particular concerns. We would be looking to attach specifically conditions relating to no amplified music associated with the use of the shepherd's huts, no hot tubs or other ancillary sort of structures associated with guests staying in the hot tubs. Staying in the hot tubs, staying in the shepherd's huts, and then more broadly, a site management plan to sweep up things like arrivals and departures of guests and other sort of softer type behaviour issues that we might need to address. But hopefully, with careful management by the applicants, that those are issues that will look after themselves in the longer term. And then the only other comment that we might need to just pick up in a condition, or certainly I need to make clear as the applicant is in the room, is when we're looking at the landscaping scheme and when they would like to bring the use into use, if approved, it's the size of the plants that would potentially be relevant there too.
Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Withers.
Right. Are the proposer and seconder happy with those points or conditions? Right. No further comments from Mr. Evans or Mr. Withers? No. All right. Then I'll go to the local member.
Thank you, Chairman. My apologies if my emotive thousand was seen out to be not required, but if you look at it, this is a private driveway which will be turned, if approved, into a business with all the further travel via vehicles over and above the cars that are there now. At the moment, as I saw yesterday, there's 6 cars covering the entirety of the 3 properties. You must agree, and again thank you, Chairman, for looking at my maths and being 3 a day. It could be worse then. If we have vehicles coming and going as a business, albeit out in the morning, back at night, coming to the site, leaving the site, going out in the evening for lunch, for dinner or whatever, that's going to amount to a lot of vehicles on a very narrow track, which is not an unadopted lane. It is a driveway, a gated private driveway, and as such, the specification of that is contained within each of the property's deeds as being a driveway. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Durkin. We'll now move on to the vote. We have a proposal that has been proposed and seconded, which is the officer's recommendation, plus conditions as outlined by Mr. Withers. Those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Then that is carried. Can I now move that we have a 10-minute break before we move into the next 2 items? Thank you. All right, we're live. Now, can I move on now to item 7? Wyeside Playing Fields, Belvedere Lane, Hereford. Propose replacement of changing rooms and associated facilities. We have, I believe we have no public speakers for this item. This is the, on the committee agenda by dint of being related to officers involved in this organisation, so it has to come to committee. Can I now ask our officer to make the presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for the... Sorry. So the case here, as Chair has mentioned, is presented at this committee due to a councillor and staff member involvement with the club. Otherwise, it would be dealt with under a delegated matter. The case relates to Hereford Rugby Club, which is accessed directly off Belvedere Lane to the south of Broomy Hill and is adjacent to the River Wye and is denoted by the red star on screen. Next slide. The site, as shown in closer detail on this side, comprises 2 full-side rugby pitches, along with facilities comprising bar, changing rooms and function room. It sits to the west of the Great Western Way, and the site boundaries are heavily mature hedgerows and trees, with the Sea Cadets to the furthest east part of the site. To the south of the site is the riverbank and the public footpath. Levels are flat across the site, and the site is located within flood zone 2 and 3 and within the central conservation area for Hereford. The proposal here will involve extending the existing building to the south to provide new and much needed updated facilities for the club. The extension will comprise 4 separate changing rooms, each with toilet and showers, and a medical room, with 2 separate referee changing rooms, along with the reconfiguration of the existing kitchen to provide enhanced kitchen facilities. The extension will form to the south of the existing pavilion building and will be made up of composite metal sheeting with only openings to the front elevations. The extension will largely occupy the existing structure on site, minimising the overall impact of the extension. Foul drainage will connect to the main sewer and surface water will be managed via soakaways. Noting the site is known for flooding throughout the winter months, and with the site being within flood zone 2 and 3, the extension will have a similar makeup to the existing building. It will sit on posts or pads, so no mass foundations or full concrete slabs are proposed, and it will sit approximately 1 metre above ground level to mitigate any flood risk. To conclude, the extension is considered a much needed addition to the thriving and growing social facility. The proposal will not create any additional flood risk, nor will it adversely impact any residential amenity. There have been no objections received from any members of the public, nor from any statutory consultees, including Natural England, and therefore the proposal is recommended for approval based on the conditions and the pre-commencement conditions stated within the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, can I invite debate Councillor Poulter, Councillor Andrews and Councillor Simon.
Can I propose we go forward with this application?
Move recommendation.
Move recommendation, yep.
Right. Councillor Andrews and Councillor Simons and Councillor Woodall. Is that seconded, by the way?
I'm seconded.
Right, yeah.
I've been round the existing facilities. They're very much of their period, about 1970s, and they do need considerable improvement, particularly in the provision of medical facilities, etc. So it will not impede, not affect anybody really. Even the block of flats at the front have got no objection. So I'm happy to support this recommendation.
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is an excellent improvement on the current situation in terms of the design and the facility improvement. There's obviously a much need with the increased housing numbers within Hereford for provision of suitable facilities. I do have just one query. I note there's a construction environmental management plan condition attached, hence the no objection from Natural England, I think. I just want to make sure, obviously the surface water and the site drainage isn't to the sewers, it's straight into effectively the Wye. I just want to make sure that that construction environmental management plan has a specific requirement to ensure that no demolition or construction materials end up in the Wye. And I'm not sure how you manage that, but I just want to make sure that that is captured within the CEMP. Thank you.
I think that would be covered by legislation current.
It probably would be covered by other environmental legislation, but I think the fact that Councillor Simmons has raised that is something that we've made a note of and will ensure that is picked up when the submission is made in due course.
Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was looking at the building plan, and I might need some direction on this because I'm new to this, but should we be asking for a condition that they incorporate some sort of fire risk management, because there's a large area or a large room, 4 changing rooms, 2 toilets, 1 physio room, 2 rooms for the referees. You know, when the game kicks off, how many people in a rugby team? Is it 15 plus 7 subs? And if they're all in there getting changed and there's 2 teams, you're looking at over 50 people in one room and there's no fire exit. So is there a way that we can ask for fire safety regs to be included or to be reviewed in part of the building measures?
I would have thought that it should have been part of the...
Well, I think the simple answer to that, and I'm sure Councillor Woodall will get used to the extent of planning controls and where planning stops and where other legislation becomes relevant, but that is a matter probably for building regulations or other legislation. So we'd be straying into areas that are outside the scope of planning regulations in that particular case.
I think building regs are usually pretty thorough on that sort of thing.
Okay,
anyway.
Thank you.
I don't think it'll get through without being relevant. Any other speakers? I do? No? Right. Well, I'm quite pleased, having spent many an hour there, a happy hour there myself. To, can I, those in favour, please? Unanimous? That's carried. Right, we'll move on now. I think we've changed our case officer to Miss Morris, and now we move to proposed erection of a single-storey garden shed and brick house, Bosbury, ledbury, Herefordshire, which is dint of being an officer application. Can I ask Miss Morris to give the presentation, please? I don't think we've got any speakers, so we'll move on to that. Miss Morris.
Thank you, Chair. The case here before members, as you've said, is because it's an officer application. This should usually be dealt with as a delegated matter, but for this reason it is not. It's also worth mentioning it's forward of the principal elevation of the dwelling. The broad location of the application site is marked by the red star as shown on the screen and accessed off a classified road within the hamlet of Catley. The site is made up of a 2-storey dwelling that lies within a long narrow plot with mature hedgerows surrounding the site. Planning permission is sought for the construction of a single-storey outbuilding described as a garden shed. This would be located to the northeast end of the plot. The image on the left shows the view from the proposed location of the garden shed looking back towards the host dwelling, and the image on the right shows the location of the proposed shed. Next slide. The proposed shed would measure approximately 5.6 metres by 4.1 metres with a ridge height of 2.7. The materials proposed are of timber cladding and a corrugated sheet roof. These are seen to reflect its use as a garden shed. The scale and massing of the proposed development is modest and appropriate with its context and setting and would not result in disproportionate structure when read as an outbuilding of a 2-storey dwelling. Furthermore, the proposed shed is designed in a manner which reflects its use and virtue by scale and its materials. Next slide. This slide shows the view from the application site facing the neighbouring dwelling to the south. The proposed shed is a small structure that would afford no overlooking or overshadowing of the neighbouring dwelling. The proposal would maintain the amenity of the neighbours and would not result in any visual dominance. To conclude, no conflict is found of local or national policies, namely SD1 and LD1, of the core strategy with regards to scale, design and amenity. As such, the scheme is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Forward of the principal elevation.
I'd really like to see a tree condition put on this one. Sorry, joke, terrible joke. No, I wouldn't. I see no issues at all with this. I think it's of a scale. We know why it's been bought before us. I'd like to move that we accept the case officer's recommendation.
That's a conflict of interest.
I don't know where I could say, but I think they need a clippers and a few things to cut the grass and edges when they got the shed. Sorry.
I think that's outside planning. Okay, outside our remit anyway. Right, then that has been proposed and seconded. Can I ask those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your attendance, and we've got an additional meeting which is on the 21st of August, right, was been placed in. Sorry? Okay, well, we'll close. Sorry, thank you all for your attendance, and we close the meeting. Is that?